the new constitution, before the constitution which we have now. It was created following the model of what you have in the United States. And I had the advantage of attending the Senate sessions in your country. I have been around here in the corridors of this parliament for about 20 years. So I have been to your Senate many times, and I know how you operate. And we borrowed a lot from America. In fact, our hope right now as a Senate of this country is that some of the aspects which were not properly captured in our constitution, which we borrowed from America, that this time we'll find time to include them in the constitution as we move on. So I also want to take this opportunity to welcome you to this country. And also, like my friend Outa, and I wish you could find time to tour our touristic sites, tour our coast, which is world-renowned. In fact, the Diani Beach in our coast is one of the most famous in the world. So I hope you find time to visit those sites. Thank you very much. Thank you, Speaker.
Honorable Senators, I have another communication to make. I would like to acknowledge the presence in the Speaker's gallery this afternoon of a delegation comprising 31 librarians from 27 county assemblies who are on a 5-day attachment program in the Senate. The county assemblies presented are Samburu, Taita Taveta, Laikipia, Vihiga, Siaya, Busia, Nyamira, Tharaka Nithi, Tana River, Nyandarua, Wajir, Embu, Kisumu, Nakuru, Kajiado, Nairobi, Kirinyaga, Kiambu, Nyeri, Kisii, Mandera, Migori, Homa Bay, Garissa, Kericho, Bomet, and Kakamega. The objective of the attachment program is to equip the officers with specialized knowledge and the sharing of experience between officers at the Parliament and county assemblies, and further, to facilitate upscaling of the operation of the county assembly libraries as a critical legislative bodies in preserving legislative record as a vital resource for legislature. Honorable Senator, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to the delegation and on behalf of the Senate and on my behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I thank you. Honorable George Henry.
Bwana Spika, ningependa uniruhusu kujumuika na wewe kukukaribisha wageni wetu kutoka county assemblies mbalimbali ikiwemo county assembly ya Vihiga. Vihiga ni county ambayo naiwakilisha katika Senate hili. Tunafuraha kuwakaribisha hapa na ninafuraha ya kwamba county assembly ya Vihiga imeweza kupata nafasi nyingi sana ya kutuma wajumbe katika Senate hii kujifunza mambo mbalimbali na mambo ya kuendesha Parliament.
Ni hoja ipi ya nidhamu, Mheshimiwa Faki?
Mwenzangu Senata Kanira amezungumzia nafsi badala ya nafasi. Nafsi na nafasi ni vitu viwili tofauti, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kaunti ya Vihiga imepata nafasi nyingi kuleta wafanyakazi wake hapa bunge kusoma, lakini sio nafasi, nafasi, Mheshimiwa Spika. Asante.
Pengine tu Senator Faki, pengine tu ni vile alivyotohoa lile jina kwa sababu ulimuelewa, lakini tayari amekuelewa vizuri. Endelea Senator.
Hata hivyo bwana Speaker, nakubali kukosolewa na Senator 001. Bwana Speaker, nilikuwa nasema ya kwamba wamepata nafasi nyingi ya kuja kujifunza mengi kwa bunge la Seneti, na nashukuru ya kwamba administration ya county hiyo inawapatia nafasi hiyo. Seneti ni mahali pazuri pa kuja kujifunza. Tuko na ile ambayo kwa kimombo wanasema best practices. Sijui 001 atanifunza best practices kwa Kiswahili tutasema namna gani. Kwa hivyo mnajifunza kutoka kwa wale ambao wanatekeleza mambo yao kwa njia ya wema kabisa. Kwenu siwezi kujitetea, nilijitetea kwa wageni wa kutoka mbali kuwaeleza ya kwamba seneti hili viti vinaonekana bure kwa sababu watu wamekimbia mashinani kutafuta kura. Nyinyi ni wa hapa, mnaelewa ya kwamba hii sio kawaida yetu. Wengi wanatafuta kurudi hapa, wengi wanataka kukuwa magavana kama mimi na wania kiti cha ugavana cha Vihiga. Kwa hivyo hii sio kawaida yetu. Tunawakaribisha na tunawatakia kila laheri mnapoendelea na kujifunza kwa wiki ile moja ambayo mtakuwa hapa. Asanteni.
Senator Gertrude Msuruve.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to join you in welcoming the visitors in the House. And I want to thank the delegation that has come from the counties to be here with us. And it must be very clear, as the delegation is coming here, they must know very well that we know and we are committed to ensuring money is allocated and disbursed to the counties, and that there's service delivery in the counties. But the onus is on county assemblies to ensure that the money is rightly utilized, that service delivery has been done effectively, and that public participation also has taken place effectively in the counties. I also want to thank the visiting students from the US. I've seen some of them are old, some of them are young, and this is very good because benchmarking in the Senate to see what exactly happens in leadership is very important, because when it comes to our future actually is in the hands of the youths. As we are grooming them, as they come to the Senate, they see how we are legislating, then they'll have something to take home. Honorable Speaker, I support you in actually welcoming all these visitors in the House. Thank you.
Senator Mwinyi Haji Mohamed Faki.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika pia kwa kunipa fursa hii kujiunga nawe pamoja na maseneta wenzangu kuwakaribisha wahudumu wa maktaba kutoka kaunti zilizotajwa. Mheshimiwa Spika, maktaba ni kiungo muhimu cha elimu na vile vile pia cha taasisi tofauti ili kuweza kujua tunatoka wapi na tunakwenda wapi. Na nafikiri yale ambao wataweza kusoma hapa itasaidia pakubwa Mheshimiwa Spika kuweza kutengeneza maktaba na makavazi mazuri kwa vizazi vijavyo. Mheshimiwa Spika, hapa bungeni tuna utaalamu mwingi na vile vile pia tuna vitabu na stakabadhi nyingi ambazo zisaidia pakubwa kutuelimisha sisi kama maseneta na watu wengine kuhusiana na taratibu za bunge na mambo mengine kama hayo. Kwa hiyo kusoma kwao Mheshimiwa Spika, kuhudhuria kwao vikao hivi itasaidia pakubwa kuweza kujenga elimu na vile vile pia kujenga uhusiano bora kati ya bunge letu la Senate na zile county ambazo zimekuja. Karibuni Mheshimiwa Spika, asante.
Senator Samson Cherargei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. From the onset, I want to welcome the team from 27 county assemblies, librarians that are being attached to the
Chair, Agriculture.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, 18th May 2022. This is the report of the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries on its consideration of the National Assembly amendments to the Coffee Bill, Senate Bills number 22 of 2020. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, statements.
Senator Cherargei.
No, sorry. Mr. Speaker, sir, a request for statement on the Kenya shillings 9 billion set aside for rehabilitation and improvement of the old Mombasa Road after the construction of the Nairobi Expressway. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 48-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Roads and Transportation regarding the extra Kenya shillings 9 billion that has been set aside by the Ministry of Transport to be used in rehabilitation and improvement of old Mombasa Road, in brackets lower deck, after the construction of now the famous Nairobi Expressway. In the statement, Mr. Speaker, the committee should, 1, state why the cost of the construction of the Nairobi Expressway, which has initially been projected to cost of Kenya shillings 65.2 billion, but later increased by Kenya shillings 7.6 billion to Kenya shillings 72.8 billion, as stated by Kenya National's Highways Authority, KENHA, did not factor in the cost of rehabilitation and improvement of old Mombasa Road, the lower deck. Number 2, explains the reasons for the ministry setting aside the Kenya shillings 9 billion, yet the contractor, China Roads and Bridge Construction Company, which is responsible for damages on the old Mombasa Road lower deck, and should take full responsibility. Number 3, Mr. Speaker, sir, explain whether the contract had factored that was awarded to China Roads and Bridges Construction Company had factored escalation costs, stating the amount projected for escalation and variation on the construction of the road, that is now the expressway, considering this extra cost of rehabilitation of 9 billion. Mr. Speaker, sir, provide a comprehensive report on variations of cost in contracts for construction of other major roads in the country, if any, and the total amounts involved in such variation in all roads that are being raised to bitumen standards across the country. And finally, Mr. Speaker, provide a definite timeline. And you know, Mr. Speaker, most Kenyans who live along Mombasa Road had relocated because of the construction, and most businesses were closed along that route. Provide a definite timeline on completion of the renovation and rehabilitation works, giving a clear guideline on the usage of Nairobi Expressway, especially for emergency services such as fire engines, ambulances, and use for the VIP, among other emergency services. Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you.
Senator Stewart Mazai.
Bwana Spika, nataka kuongeza kidogo nikisema kwamba Bwana Spika, wale waliotengeza barabara walikuja hapa Kenya wakapata kwamba kuna barabara zake tayari, na hivi sasa wakatoboa mashimo, wakatengeza vile walivyotengeza, wametengeza barabara yao nzuri sana, hata mimi nishawahi kupita. Lakini sasa kule chini waliko haribu, kuna umuhimu ya kwamba anayeharibu ndio anayetengeza. Naona kuna mushkil hapo wa kwamba watu fulani sasa wanataka kuingia katika mambo ya ufisadi. Hizo 9 billion ni pesa za Wakenya, ni pesa za watu wa lalahoi ambao wanajaribu sana kuishi katika hii nchi, na hii nchi imekuwa gali, watu hawawezi kuishi. Kwa hiyo tunataka kujua kitambo cha kwanza ni kwa nini wanauliza hili swala la kuongezwa pesa za 9 billion ili kutengeza sehemu ambayo iliharibiwa na wale waliopewa hiyo contract waitengeneze. Bwana Spika, tumekuwa na ufisadi sana ndani ya Kenya, na hususan hii wizara ya barabara. Ndani ya barabara, kama mtu anataka contractor yote anataka kuwa tajiri, anaenda katika upande wa takriban mambo ya kutengeza barabara, na tumeona hiyo ikitendeka, na watu wanaotengeza barabara kila siku wamekuwa matajiri wa kupitukia. Sasa hata hawaangalii tena umaskini wa Mkenya, imebidi ni kugandamizwa tu. Hivi sasa hiyo barabara ya kwanza, hiyo express highway, kupita juu unalipa bei ghali sana. Ukilipa shilingi 10,000, ukiangalia, ukienda airport, ukirudi, ukitoka, ukiingia ndani, ukiwa unaenda sijui pande gani na pande gani. Niliangalia hii weekend, 10,000 unaweza maliza na siku 2 kwa hizo barabara. Sasa mimi naweza kukuambia wazi Bwana Spika ya kwamba huu ufisadi wa hali ya namna hii sisi kama Wakenya hatuwezi kukubali. Lazima kuweko na sababu mwafaka ambazo zitaeleza vizuri ya kwamba hizi pesa wanazouliza. Na Senator Cherargei nataka kumpatia heko sana kwa sababu ya swala kama hilo. Tunataka kujua ni kwa sababu gani hii kampuni kama bado iko na sasa wanaendelea kuchaji wa Kenya. Hiyo pesa wanaochukua kuchaji wa Kenya kutembea katika hiyo barabara, watumie hiyo kutengeza hiyo barabara ambao wameharibu huko chini. Asante Bwana Spika.
Asante. Senator Gertrude Msuruve.
Thank you, Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to give my comments. And I want to start by thanking Senator Cherargei for bringing a very important statement on the floor of this House. And it is coming at a time when we are almost going for recess, and yet this is a very, very serious statement that needs to be pursued up to the end of it all. Honorable Speaker, there is need for the committee to ensure that it intervenes, interrogates, and finds out, the modality of payment of the money to the contractors. And if the contractors were paid upfront all the amount of money, what was the logic behind paying the contractors? There is no need of contractors being paid upfront before completing their jobs, and even every job must have a warrant. Because even when you go to buy a fridge, you are given a warrant of a guarantee of 1 year, 2 years, like that. So even for a road should not be, made this year, and then next year it is being rehabilitated using taxpayers' money to do this. I think it is very wrong, and there's need to investigate. And also the committee should also inform the time frame, because the Senate is almost coming to an end. So we need to know, Kenyans need to know, and they must know when the road will be complete. it. And even, Honorable Speaker, as this committee investigates what Senator Cherargei has brought on board, I think it is also necessary for the committee to tell us about the express highway, where Kenyans are being made to pay 5,000. Now, for example, one person has about 3 vehicles or 4. Does it mean that for every vehicle you'll be being paid, Honorable Speaker? Because I'm wondering whether this is a road that is meant to help Kenyans, should be used by Kenyans, because it is now a business. So the expressway must come out clearly to say why they're using taxpayers' money to make a road that Kenyans will pay, you know, while using the road. This is something we should not really keep quiet as Kenyans. We must really be given answers as to why this should be there. So I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that it is the honors of, you know, the contractor to do any repairs that are there, but not the government to allocate a huge sum of money, taxpayers' money, again to, you know, rehabilitate the road. And yet the contractor was paid full amount of money, Honorable Speaker. So there is need to investigate this. And Senator Cherargei, thank you so much for bringing this on the floor of this House. This is a statement that should not be taken for granted. It should be taken with the seriousness and the gravity in which it has come, you know, it has come on the floor of this House, Honorable Speaker. I support this statement. Thank you.
Senator Faki.
Mimi pia najiunga na Senator Cherargei kuunga mkono maombi yake ya taarifa kuhusiana na barabara ya Mombasa Road. Mheshimiwa Spika, zabuni ya ile barabara moja kwa moja, yani Nairobi Expressway, ni tofauti na zabuni ya kurekebisha barabara ambayo ilikuwako hapo awali, barabara ya Mombasa Road. Haiwezekani, Mheshimiwa Spika, kwamba zabuni ile itolewe bila ya kufuata sheria, kwa sababu sheria inasema kwamba zabuni zozote za barabara zinazohusu fedha nyingi ni lazima ziende kwa mipango ya tenda. Itangazwe tenda, yoyote ambaye ana uwezo wa kufanya kazi ile aweze kupewa nafasi ya kuweza kuifanya. Mheshimiwa Spika, hii barabara ya moja kwa moja imejengwa kwa mfumo wa jenga, endesha, baadaye una transfer kwa serikali. Kwa hivyo itakuwa ni makosa na ni ubadilifu wa fedha kuacha tenda kama hii, Mheshimiwa Spika, kufanywa bila ya kufuata sheria, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hivyo hii statement, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni muhimu sana, na ningeomba kamati ya transport ya bunge hili iangalie kwa makini na kwa haraka, kwa sababu kama tunavyojua muhula wa bunge unaenda kuisha, na hii ndio fursa ambayo watu wanaofanya kazi katika serikali huweza kupata nafasi ya kusaini zabuni ambazo hazina kichwa wala mguu, ili kufanya ubadilifu wa pesa za serikali. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Get to Msuruve for your statement.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 47-1 to make a statement on a matter of general topical concern, namely World Hypertension Day. Mr. Speaker, sir, the objective of the World Health Organization on this day is to communicate to the public the significance of hypertension and its serious medical complications, and to provide information on prevention, detection, and treatment. This day is celebrated every May the 17th. It was initiated by the World Hypertension League, an umbrella organization that unites national hypertension leagues and societies around the world. The theme for this year's World Hypertension Day is measure your blood pressure accurately, control it, live longer. In many parts of the world, millions and millions of people around the globe have died as a result of blood pressure and its related consequences. High blood pressure is often called the silent killer, and this is because most of the time it has no obvious symptoms to indicate something is wrong. Mr. Speaker, sir, high blood pressure is classified into 4 categories. That is, we have normal, prehypertension, that is mild, stage 1, moderate, and stage 2 severe. Histomi Arima et al., that is a scholar, in his 2011 research on mortality patterns in hypertension, stated that raised blood pressure is responsible for 7.6 million deaths per annum worldwide, more than any other risk factors. Around 54% of stroke and 47% of coronary heart disease are attributed to high blood pressure. Further adding that over 80% of this burden occurs in low and middle income countries. Blood pressure related diseases also contribute to cardiovascular deaths among people below the hypertensive threshold of 140/90 mmHg. Mr. Speaker, sir, as we commemorate this day, awareness on blood pressure is important because blood pressure is one of the vital signs used to check how well your body is. Blood pressure is measured in millimeters of mercury, that is a mmHg. The reading has two numbers. The first number is the systolic blood pressure, which is the pressure in your arteries when your heart beats. The second is the diastolic pressure, which is the pressure when your heart rests between beats. Normal pressure should be 120/80 mmHg, although there may be spikes throughout the day based on your activities. High blood pressure is usually managed by lifestyle changes and, if necessary, medications. Mr. Speaker, sir, high blood pressure can quietly damage the body for years before symptoms develop. Uncontrolled high blood pressure can lead to disability or poor quality of life, or even a deadly heart attack or stroke. Many Kenyans, high and mighty, low and humble, have died as a result of high blood pressure and related causes. Mr. Speaker, sir, as we mark this day, I would like to call upon the national government in conjunction with the county governments to take up the responsibility of 1, creating awareness on the causes of high blood pressure, 2, availing free blood pressure checkups in all county hospitals, 3, availing free medical awareness on how to prevent high blood pressure, and 4, ensuring that every Kenyan has the highest attainable standard of health. I thank you for this opportunity and wish you all a happy belated World Hypertension Day. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Cherargei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. I want from the onset to thank my sister, Senator Gertrude Musuruve. I think she has done exceptionally well. I would have really wished to see her in the next parliament because the grasp of issues and legislation that she has done in this house yes, I would want to see her in the next parliament, either the National Assembly or the Senate. And I hope the party is taking of note through the Deputy Minority Leader, Senator Stewart Mazayo, because she has done well. At least she has exceptionally done well. And I hope the people also of Kakamega are taking note of. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank her for bringing this issue. The issue of World Hypertension Day is very important. Mr. Speaker, under Article 43 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, it states clearly in clear terms that access to highest quality of health in this country is a basic human right. And we know basic human rights is very important in our Constitution of 2010. This is a silent killer, as you say, high blood pressure, Mr. Speaker. In fact, as she has put it, it is not killing only the mighty or the high. It's also ravaging our villages. And the worst part is that most of the people do not know that they are either suffering because there are no symptoms, Mr. Speaker. So I agree with that we must take, I know these are diseases that have resulted because of lifestyle and the choices that we make, but these are diseases that can be managed in ensuring that we change choices in our lives, Mr. Speaker. And I want to say these are reality. both at the highest level as the Senate, to the lowest level in our villages. This is the biggest challenge that we have as a country. And I think as we mark this day, we must take opportunity, and as Senate, Mr. Speaker, and Parliament, and other people who are salaried or government employees or private sector, some of them have access to be able to take medical checkups once in a while. And this is important that it can be detected early so that you can live a life to the fullest. Because after some time, it destroys organs of the body, the symptoms are not seen, and that is why some people call it silent killer, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's worth noting that health as it is has been devolved. And one of the requests of our colleague is to at least create in centers, county hospitals, sub-county hospitals, local dispensaries that we have, that ordinary people can walk to, like Mosoria Sub-County Hospital, and check their pressure, be it Kapsabet County Referral Hospital, or any other part, for example, in Nandi County, any other part in Laikipia, in Embu, in any other part, including Kilifi and Mombasa. We need that access. And the reason, Mr. Speaker, we devolve the health was to ensure we bring it closer to the people. That was the real intention of devolution. But up to now, the health sector is struggling. The health sector itself is in ICU. Because the challenges that are facing our health in our counties is one, there is the challenge of human resource issues. You find there is always been unsettled fight with governors on the issue of hiring, salaries, emoluments, Mr. Speaker, challenges that are bedevil our health sector in our counties, Mr. Speaker. The reason, and I think the wisdom of the drafters of the Constitution to devolve health, they realize each and every Kenyan should be able to access an health center, a dispensary, a level 4 hospital, county referral hospital, of course the national referral hospital like Moi Teaching and Referral, I think there is Mbagathi, there is Kenyatta National Hospital, and many others. I think there is one that has been built in Nyeri, Mr. Speaker. These are things that governors can do and ensure that our people can walk in, do check-up on. And there are many Kenyans who are also diabetic, Mr. Speaker. Even in our own families, there are Kenyans who are suffering with blood pressure. These are lifestyle diseases that you might look. And you know, even when, as a man, Mr. Speaker, I was being told also when you have high blood pressure and diabetes, performing other issues and rising to occasion also becomes a problem. And yes, and that is, Mr. Speaker, it is also some of the challenges that we are talking about with this disease. And in fact, the issues of medical awareness, I think it's very important. The way, Mr. Speaker, I wish you would see, I have seen counties and our hospitals sometimes do awareness on issues of children, pediatric, issues of breastfeeding, and many others. These are also should be included in terms of free medical camps, the awareness that we are talking about, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we need also Kenyans to know the causes of high blood pressure, Mr. Speaker. I know the current high blood pressure in the country, the people with the highest blood pressure, Mr. Speaker, are as politicians. There is high blood pressure of politics, and there is, I can tell you, most of our colleagues, including ourselves, before nominations, we were suffering from high blood pressure. So we need also the country is also on high blood pressure because of the nature of, and I want to ask my colleagues that even as we do politics, we should be careful also so that it might not come with the cost of being ill health. Because I know with the competition that is there, fighting politically, it should not make us lose our health or fight each other or ensure each other. So in as much as, and I think this is an issue that we can always address, Mr. Speaker, and ensure that our counties at least ensure that they create awareness, and where colleagues or wananchi have those challenges of diabetes, high blood pressure, because these are lifestyle diseases, Mr. Speaker, there is a way that even those county hospitals that we're having at the lowest level, be it in Laikipia or in Nandi County, for example, those are, we need to teach our people how you know it's not a death sentence. You can still manage and be able to enjoy life as it is, Mr. Speaker. And I want to really thank, and I hope the Committee of Health, I know there have not been Committee of Health membership. I don't know whether there are members here, but through the chair and through the answer, Mr. Speaker, if they can take note that this is a serious issue, we can also in future ensure as a Senate and as a Parliament also, we can also offer medical awareness and free medical checkup, especially after 9th of August, Mr. Speaker, and ensure that we attain. So I really want to thank Senator Gertrude Musuruve for this bringing to attention of the nation, bringing to the attention of all of us that we need to look back. This is a silent killer. There are no vital signs, Mr. Speaker, but it is about the choices that we make in life. And I think county governments and national governments must be at the forefront to ensure our people do not continue to suffer in some of these things that we can prevent, Mr. Speaker. For those many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I wish all of us, and mostly our brothers and sisters who suffer from high blood pressure, Mr. Speaker, on this World Hypertension Day, and wish well and call upon the sector players in health ministry to take note of this, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Cherargei. Chairperson, Standing Committee on Roads and Transportation is not there. Deferred. Next order.
Order number 8, motion. Consideration of the National Assembly amendments to the Coffee Bill, Senate Bills number 22 of 2020.
Chairperson, Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that pursuant to Standing Order 159, the amendments of the National Assembly to the Coffee Bill, Senate Bill number 22 of 2020, be now considered. Mr. Speaker, sir, first I wish to thank my committee, the Committee of Agriculture, for the diligent work that they have done in considering these amendments. Secondly, I wish to thank the stakeholders, both farmers and other stakeholders, who gave us very important inputs, or who brought very important inputs to the consideration of the amendments of this bill. Mr. Speaker, you remember when I moved this bill, I enumerated the problems of the coffee farmers. I enumerated the history of the coffee in this country. I also enumerated very clearly the reasons why Senate found it necessary to introduce a bill in this House. But the main reason was to alleviate the problems that the coffee farmers in this country go through, particularly the peasant coffee farmers in this country. Mr. Speaker, with these amendments, the amendments from the National Assembly, we do not agree with them. And Mr. Speaker, the problem is we cannot agree with some and disagree with the others. It's either we agree with all of them or disagree with all of them. That's the unfortunate bit. So we may agree with quite a number of the amendments that they have brought. But Mr. Speaker, the key amendments that they have brought really cannot be agreed with. The Senate found we cannot agree to them because they do not, they actually kill the very spirit of this bill. We brought this bill, Mr. Speaker, to this House, and this House considered the bill, and this House unanimously passed that bill because in the wisdom of the members, the bill addressed the core problem of coffee farming in this country. Mr. Speaker, you will remember that this House did feature and did indicate that since independence, we have never quite gotten ourselves out of the yoke of colonialism in some sectors. And one such sector is the coffee sector. Mr. Speaker, we have done very well in many other areas, including in the coffee sector. But Mr. Speaker, what has happened is that the farmer has been held captive by marketers, by people who control their coffee beyond where they can themselves, where they can intervene. Mr. Speaker, what happens in the coffee sector is that once the coffee leaves the farmer's farm, it goes to their cooperative society. From their cooperative society, that coffee, which at that point is called parchment, moves on and goes to somebody called a miller, whose miller is licensed currently by AFA, but whose miller now mills that coffee. Mr. Speaker, after the coffee is milled, then it is taken to the auction. When that coffee is milled, Mr. Speaker, that is where the grades, coffee grades are realized, the grades which are taken to the auction. Mr. Speaker, the farmer has no way of knowing what kind of grades his coffee has realized until they are told by the millers. But Mr. Speaker, the mischief in the coffee industry in this country has been that the same miller has also been the marketer. The same miller holds two licenses, milling license and marketing license. So the mischief, Mr. Speaker, sir, has been that it's only the miller who knows the grades of the coffee that they are taking to the auction. And the farmer does not know. And you know, the only information he has is what they are given by the millers. And when the coffee goes to the auction, then the same miller who now has another license called marketing license is the one who goes to market this coffee. Mr. Speaker, to cure that mischief in the bill which we passed in this House, to cure that mischief, Mr. Speaker, we introduced a direct payment system, what we call the DSS. Mr. Speaker, the DSS was meant to cure that problem, i.e., the farmers, once the cooperative or the farmer takes their coffee to the miller, the coffee still belongs to them. They can pick their coffee and take it to the auction themselves or through an agency which is appointed by them, by the farmer. That way, Mr. Speaker, the farmer will be guaranteed that the proceeds that they will get from their coffee is the actual proceed that they are entitled to as farmers. Mr. Speaker, currently that is not the case. Today, a farmer will take their coffee to a miller. The miller will now instruct the farmer, tell them you have so many bags of AA, of AB, of PB, and the miller will take that coffee to the auction, go and auction the coffee. The same marketing agent is the agent of the buyer, Mr. Speaker. And that is what has killed coffee farming in this country. That's what has driven the farmer out of their farms in coffee farming. Mr. Speaker, you will be shocked that the amount of revenue between the coffee marketing, when the coffee is taken to the auction, and what they realize when they sell the coffee, the amount therein, Mr. Speaker, is 3 times what the farmer gets paid, because the farmer is not involved in the eventual sale of their coffee. That's what this bill, Mr. Speaker, seeks to, the mischief that this bill seeks to cure. Mr. Speaker, I am shocked that when we started doing this bill, we were moving very, very well with even with the Ministry of Agriculture. Somewhere along the way, Mr. Speaker, we parted ways. We parted ways. Where we are in agreement is that we want to establish a coffee board. And this bill is establishing a coffee board. This bill, Mr. Speaker, is establishing a coffee research institute, the way it used to be. Because you remember, when I moved the bill, I did indicate that I do not want to go back to what happened when the board was revoked and all the functions taken to AFA, all issues related to crops were taken to AFA, and that is where we the management of both coffee and most of other cash crops, or most of other crops, started to dwindle, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this bill seeks to establish a coffee board. This bill seeks to establish a coffee research, and some of the amendments which we do not agree with from the National Assembly, the National Assembly has brought to us, is that we do not want to wish away the county governments. Mr. Speaker, agriculture is wholly devolved. It's a wholly devolved function. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, it is inconceivable that you would have amendments that wish away our county governments. How, Mr. Speaker? These are the same county governments are the ones that are in charge of cooperatives in the ground, are the ones who are in charge of crop development in the ground. Mr. Speaker, what I seek the House to note and the country to note is that whereas National Assembly passes budgets, and whereas this House, the Senate, passes the county revenue allocation of 15% currently, and whatever percentage later on, the amount of money that remains with the Ministry of Agriculture is perhaps what is causing mischief. It's what is causing mischief in our counties. There's so much money that remains with the Ministry of Agriculture, yet agriculture is a devolved function, Mr. Speaker. That is why we are not developing at all. I do not want to go to other crops. I want to concentrate on coffee today, because the amendments we have gotten from the National Assembly really do not cure what we were expecting. My surprise, Mr. Speaker, is that through these amendments that the National Assembly has introduced into this bill, that they want to also remove the benefits which we have gotten from coffee regulations. Mr. Speaker, the President himself appointed a commission, a coffee commission. And it's that coffee commission that developed the regulations. And those regulations, Mr. Speaker, they were brought to this House. But before they were brought to this House, my committee, engaged that commission, and we went through those regulations. We were satisfied they were good regulations, and we invited all senators from coffee growing areas, and not just senators, even members of parliament, all of them from coffee growing areas, and we sat for breakfast, and we went through those regulations, and we agreed on those regulations. Mr. Speaker, both the Senate and the National Assembly passed those regulations, and those regulations are in force. But you won't you get surprised when now the same government, the CS in the same government, now wants to go through the back door to remove those regulations. Mr. Speaker, it's inconceivable. That is why we have so many problems in this government. Because when you have a government that does not know what the right hand is doing, and what the left hand does not know what the right hand is doing, Mr. Speaker, please don't call that a government that knows where it is going. We as coffee farmers, Mr. Speaker, although I am the chair of the Committee of Agriculture, I also happen to be a coffee farmer. We as coffee farmers of this country, we want the bill that the Senate passed here to be the bill that will see the light of day. And the regulations which we are seeing here, Mr. Speaker, the amendments that have been brought by the National Assembly will not give us that hope. Mr. Speaker, our main objection to the objections to the amendments here rests on coffee marketing. That's our main objection. And I know most senators who are here when we moved the bill and who supported the bill will remember that the coffee farmer, we saying that and the House saying that, the coffee farmer has been made a slave of coffee marketers. That the people who make money are not the farmers, are the marketers. Are the marketers. We have had an opportunity as a committee to visit one marketer in the United States, in fact, a roaster called Joffrey's in Florida. And that roaster told us categorically, yes, we love Kenya coffee, and Kenya coffee is very good, we love it, but it's not available. We cannot access it. And when we do access it, it is very expensive. And he showed us his invoices and receipts. The last time he had bought coffee from Kenya, he had paid $1,200 a bag. Can you imagine? Now, how much is the farmer getting here? Farmer will be lucky to get $300 of that same bag, Mr. Speaker. So that tells you where the mischief is. And I am shocked, Mr. Speaker, that a cabinet secretary who is in charge of agriculture and who understands these things, yes, that would want to introduce amendments to go and kill the same farmer the government is supposed to protect. Mr. Speaker, it's really inconceivable. This should be, this, Mr. Speaker, should be condemned by all right-thinking Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, the other thing that we have noticed, of late is that these marketers, Mr. Speaker, they have actually pocketed the government, put the government in their pocket. That today, as the minister traverses the country, doing his campaigns, wherever he's doing his campaigns, and his campaigns, Mr. Speaker, and his campaigns, in coffee growing areas, all of them is to tell farmers how the chairman of agriculture of Senate does not understand coffee, and how the chairman of agriculture of the Senate, Jerome Dwiga, is the one who is stopping coffee reforms. Mr. Speaker, can you believe this? And after a minister of government addresses those farmers, he tells them to line up and gives them 1,000 bob each. Would you believe that, Mr. Speaker? Where else have you ever had that a minister is going out to do his work, and after he does his work, then he gives, he gives bribes to the fellows he's talking to? Mr. Speaker, this is money from the marketers. These are marketers who are using the minister to kill this bill. These are the same marketers. Mr. Speaker, We are asking, and we will continue to ask. We may be at the tail end of the life of this Senate, but I can assure you we will be back here again, Mr. Speaker, and purposely to pursue some of these things. One of the reasons, Mr. Speaker, why the minister should not be allowed to get away with this is because this is going to kill coffee. It is the same reason that has caused the production of coffee dwindle from 125 metric tons to current today. We are exporting less than 30 metric tons, Mr. Speaker, 30,000 metric tons, less from 125. Why? It's because of this kind of behavior. And I hope that whoever advises the president will get this message clearly, that the marketers, coffee marketers, have taken hold of his government, and they have put his government in their pockets, and through his CS, they want to frustrate coffee reforms. Mr. Speaker, I do not want to bore the House with the number of amendments that we are proposing, that we are rejecting, because we either reject one or all of them, or we either accept all of them or reject all of them. So I do hope that in the following 1 week, Mr. Speaker, that both this House and the National Assembly will find wisdom to establish a mediation committee. They call it a mediation committee, so that we can look at the amendments which are acceptable, amendments which are not acceptable. And because I sincerely do hope that this bill will see the light of day. And I do hope, Mr. Speaker, that for those of you who pray, we want to pray for the government, and specifically we want to pray for this government to begin to realize that the citizens of this country, those peasant coffee farmers out there, they look up to the government for protection. And if it is the same government that is denying them protection, Mr. Speaker, it's unthinkable. It is clearly unthinkable. Mr. Speaker, I want to say right now, you will hear that coffee prices are good, that we are being paid well. I want to caution the farmers, coffee farmers. Coffee prices have not changed. Those regulations left in place, the ones we left here, are the ones which will make a difference. The reason why we are seeing high coffee prices today, Mr. Speaker, is not because the market has changed, it's because the dollar rate has shifted. Because coffee is paid for in dollars. So when and the dollar rate has shifted. That is what is making the prices of coffee look very good right now. The only cure we have got, the only protection we have got for the Kenyan coffee farmer is this bill, Mr. Speaker. Is this bill, once you remove the amendments, which, the mischievous amendments, which have been introduced by the government through the National Assembly. Those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move.
Your second? Second.
Yes, I have two members from my committee who are here. One has just walked in. The other one was here. He was listening. So, Mr. Madzayo, could you kindly second? Senator Madzayo is a member of the committee.
Senator Stewart Madzayo.
Stewart Madzayo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I second.
Honorable Senators, I propose the question, which is that pursuant to Standing Order 159, the amendment of National Assembly to the Coffee Bill, Senate Bill number 22 of 2020 be now considered. Senator Cherargei.
What is wrong? Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Chair and the Committee of Agriculture led by Senator Njerundwiga for that wonderful work they are doing. Mr. Speaker, the issue of coffee continues to be a serious problem, especially to our farmers. From where I come from, in Nandi County, there are around almost all sub-counties in Nandi grow coffee, led by Tindred sub-county. And most farmers have been facing challenges on how they can grow, market, and get value for their coffee. Mr. Speaker, it is very important that the issue of coffee, just like any other crop in the Republic, continues to make our farmers poorer. They have invested a lot. I think the Chair of Agriculture has explained that the problem is not with farmers. The problem is not with the people of Kenya. The problem is with the Ministry of Agriculture and the government and the coffee marketers, Mr. Speaker. And you know, Senator Njerundwiga understands very well about the coffee, having worked as a cabinet minister in several governments that we have had in this country. Mr. Speaker, you know, since the current cabinet secretary, Peter Munya, came into as the cabinet of agriculture, our farmers continue to suffer because he has turned most of his engagement with farmers to political rallies. You can see most of the time insulting, demeaning, and even giving handouts to farmers, Mr. Speaker. You remember the fight that we had about the tea sector, the fight that we are having. We remember the fight that we have about the coffee. These cartels must be called out.
What is it, Senator Stewart?
That are in Ministry of Agriculture that continues, Mr. Speaker, that continue, Mr. Speaker, to destroy our farmers. And we must name and shame them, Mr. Speaker.
What is it, Senator Stewart Mazai?
Asante Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, nasimama kwa hoja ya nidhamu. Nataka kuuliza kwamba ikiwa yule anaoongeleshwa hayuko ndani ya bunge wala hajaitwa wala kisa kama hicho hajaambiwa ama kuletwa hapa kwenye bunge na kuulizwa na akashindwa kujibu, ndio mtu akawa na uwezo wa kuweza kusema ya kwamba anasema alimuuliza na hakuweko. Je, itakuwa ni haki hivi sasa ikiwa waziri wa ukulima hayuko hapa? Lakini katika mjadala unaoendelea hivi sasa, ndugu yangu, singependelea kabisa kumuingilia kati. Ndugu yangu, rafiki yangu, mdogo wangu, nampenda sana, na yeye tusikizana zaidi. Lakini ni haki kuongea juu ya mtu ambaye hayuko ndani ya bunge kwa njia ambayo haifai, ama kumuonyesha katika taifa kwamba pengine si mtendakazi maalum, na hali watu wengine kama sisi tunajua yeye ni mtendakazi. Kwa hiyo tunataka kujua kama ni sawa hivyo kuongea kama hayuko ama si sawa.
Senator Cherargei, pengine wacha sana kujihusisha na mambo ambayo ni kana kwamba unamkemea waziri, lakini kulingana na vile ambavyo nilikuwa nikifuatilia mjadala huu kutoka kwa mwenyekiti wa kamati ya ukulima, kuna mambo aliyogusia. Nilisikia akisema ya kwamba yule waziri amekuwa akipeana, na alizita mwenyewe, hongo ya 1,100 kwa kila mkulima anaye tembea katika ule mkutano. Sijui kama vile alivyosema ni kweli, lakini kwa sababu nilimsikia akisema, vile ambavyo ningependa kumwambia Cherargei ya kwamba tafadhali jihusishe na mswada wenyewe bila hasa kumuingiza waziri katika hayo mambo. Pengine tu kutaja yale maneno ambayo unajua, lakini si kumuingiza kwa kuleta nia mbaya kwake. Asante.
Nafikiri Mheshimiwa Spika, nasikia ndugu yako anasema angependa kuniingilia katikati. I don't know what that means, but maybe it's a story for another day.
Senator Cherargei, yes. Ni vizuri kama ulianza kwa Kiingereza uendelee kwa Kiingereza. Wacha kuchanganya lugha.
My apologies, Mr. Speaker, sir. You know, I heard in Kiswahili saying something I didn't understand. But I hope you know better because you are good in Kiswahili. Mr. Speaker, what I was just saying is that the chair of committee has told us one of the impediments to the success of coffee reforms has been the ministry itself. So, Mr. Speaker, and we have seen the ministry officials have always, Mr. Speaker, and you know, I've just said coffee continues to become a problem. And that is why, as a government and people who do bottom-up, one of the proposals that will move forward is looking at guarantee minimum returns for our farmers. I think when we implement guarantee minimum returns to our farmers, even in cost, through the bottom-up, and I can see Senator Stewart Mazai is excited because he really wants to see this government of bottom-up economic model where every farmer, Mr. Speaker, will get what we call guarantee minimum returns. And that is the only way we will finish these cartels that continue to frustrate our farmers in coffee sector, in tea sector, in sugar sector, in milk sector, Mr. Speaker. The only to fix this is a bullet called guarantee minimum returns to our farmers. And I think the chairperson of agriculture has spoken passionately about coffee. I remember we had a fight in this house, Mr. Speaker, when the World Bank gave us 10 billion through coffee cherry fund. We fought over this house. The minister was summoned. He could not give us the concrete answers, and it is on record in the answer of the Senate Republic of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, when these reforms we want to do, these people don't want reforms, say that when they get funds like through World Bank, 10 billion, that were through coffee cherry fund, they can play around with it. Because they fear regulations and legal framework, that their transparency and accountability of managing public funds that belong to farmers continue. Mr. Speaker, we were sad that day because Nandi was excluded to the counties that were supposed to be given and benefit from coffee cherry fund of 10 billion. We protested in this house. The cabinet secretary was summoned. He never gave us any concrete answers. It has never been told. And almost 3/4 of this country, and my brother Senator Ndwiga will tell you, have a potential of growing coffee. Everywhere you go across the world, you will not miss spotting a coffee shop. Even anywhere, in fact, the coffee is more taken than even tea, Mr. Speaker, across the world. And we need our farmers who grow coffee to have value for their coffee, Mr. Speaker. So when we raise these issues, we are raising because where I come, Nandi County, Mr. Speaker, there are farmers who still struggle with growing of coffee, keeping of coffee, marketing of coffee. Others have gone ahead and built cooperative societies. Others are still struggling buying bulbing machines. And I remember, Mr. Speaker, when I was doing my campaign, I went to a place called Kipshele. And they are still struggling in Tindre sub-county, near Kibukwa, where they are still struggling on trying to get how they can build on cooperative society and be able to have their own pulping machines. And I remember one of their machines had broken down. That is the pain that coffee farmers continue to suffer because of cartels, because of the impediment of Ministry of Agriculture, Mr. Speaker. And the government has not made a decision to crush cartels. And the chair has explained very well that the cartels are known. They know what they are doing within government. They know their friends. I want to appeal, and I know being part of the larger Kenya Kwanza, that we must agree to fix and do coffee reforms. We agree with tea reforms, sugarcane reforms, coconut, tea, milk, and any other reforms to ensure our farmers get the value for guaranteed minimum returns. So I want to really thank our chair and say he has spoken with passion. And I felt as a representative of the people who grow coffee in the North Rift. I live in Kericho, Mr. Speaker, my neighboring, a place called Kipkeli, and we were sharing with the chair, was one of the first places to grow coffee and have a machine in Kipkeli, I think in the 1930s. Even before the onset of colonization in this republic. But when you go to Kipkelion in Kericho County, they are yet to get the value of what they have grown coffee over decades, Mr. Speaker. So I really want to support and agree that if there are amendments that needs to be done, the Senate must stand its ground, because, Mr. Speaker, oh, I don't mind being informed by Waziri.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I want to inform my colleague that it's true. Out of the regulation we passed here, the first beneficiary of direct coffee sales is Kipkelion Union. And Kipkelion Union, they have taken this advantage. But for them to get permission to export their coffee, Mr. Speaker, you will be shocked. After they found their own market, good beans, that we introduced those fellows to them, after they found their own market, then the ministry has been, and that is why they want to reverse these things, that they have been putting barriers to getting them get direct licenses to export their coffee to wherever they want. Kipkelion, they exported 7 containers, and they were paid in excess of 150 million Kenya shillings, Mr. Speaker. That's where we want to go.
Mr. Speaker, let me conclude, and I think I saw also Bomet wanted to do such thing, and I don't know how they Bomet with the Iranian authorities. But I'm very impressed if now, and you can see, Mr. Speaker, that is why agriculture is devolved. As a Senate, we must stand our ground, because one of the important functions that were devolved are agriculture, Mr. Speaker. And I'm happy that Kipkelion has got an opportunity of doing direct sales, because it will encourage other cooperative unions in Nandi, Laikipia, and across the country. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to call upon the Senate to take its rightful position of protecting devolution as envisaged in Article 96. Because, and the Ministry of Agriculture must be told that it is only policy that we retain at national level. Any other part of implementation must be given to counties to do that, and such as licensing, and they must be given that power. I wish one day a cooperative society in Kabirer, in Tindre sub-county, can be able to direct their sales even to the US or Iran or wherever that they are supposed to send. And I'm happy, and it is sad, Mr. Speaker, that the same government wants to stifle the benefit that should have gone. And it is sad that, thank you for the information, Senator Ndwiga, that Kipkelion, when they benefited from this, the government has gone ahead. And I remember, Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, the Minister of Agriculture at some point, when the governor of Bomet had gone to Iran to try and engage directly and send sell their product direct, their crop to Iran. You remember the Minister of Agriculture himself answered him. Instead of assisting counties to ensure they get licensing and do and sell. So, Mr. Speaker, this issue of coffee, we must address it fully, and we must call out cartels that are preventing reforms within the coffee industry. And as a Senate, and thank God, when we come back, I know we are constrained with time, we must continue with this fight and hope and believe that we'll have a government that believes in guarantee minimum returns to our farmers, and that is Kenya Kwanza. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Gertrude Msurove.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity. And Honorable Speaker, as the chair, Senator Ndwiga, was taking us through, I could really see the role of the Senate. If you look at the bill that, the Senate bill on coffee, it comes out very clearly that we are keen about representing the counties and the interests of the counties. And one of our core interests is ensuring that we are protecting our farmers. Because, Honorable Speaker, it must be very clear that as a country, we signed the Maputo Declaration that stated clearly that we will support agriculture, and about 10% of the national revenue will go to agriculture. Now, one of our core business, serious business in this house, is to protect the interests of the counties. And when it comes to farmers, farmers must be a priority, Honorable Speaker. Now, if you look at the Senate bill that we gave, the proposition was that both the national government and the county government must be involved when it comes to the issue of farming. Why? Because the national government comes out specifically with a specific role. Like for instance, when you're talking about policies, it will come from the national government, which needs now to cascade to the county governments. And when you look at also issues of security, Honorable Speaker, many times you find people being murdered in coffee growing areas and all that. The government needs to provide, security, even for, coffee growing areas. It is very clear what the government needs to do. It is very clear also what the county government needs to do. In the event of outbreaks, disease and all that, it must be the business of the county government and the national government. So that way we'll be protecting our farmers, we'll be encouraging our farmers, and we'll be making the industry sustainable, Honorable Speaker. And one of the issues in this industry that must be remembered is that we must see how to encourage our farmers so that their work is self-sustaining. Farmers employ themselves, they're self-employed, and they're also creators of employment. So it is just our honors as a Senate to ensure that the business that is going on in the coffee industry is a business that is going to benefit farmers directly. So farmers should get money from their proceeds directly. We should not have, people brokering in order for farmers to get, money. And even when it comes to support, the support should come from the government. The farmers should not be encouraged to look for loans from banks and pay interest and all that. There must be a mechanism of ensuring that the board that is created is a board that is going to ensure that even when it comes to planting, farmers have the seedlings. When it comes to diseases, farmers have the protection and all that, Honorable Speaker. So I know, Honorable Speaker, that when it comes to real coffee, Kenyan coffee is drunk in many parts of this world. If you go to America, if you go to Dubai, all over, and it is very expensive. It is unfortunate that once this coffee is imported or is exported, the real farmer who plants that coffee cannot even afford to buy it because it is very expensive. But we must look for mechanisms of encouraging our own, encouraging this industry so that it can be self-sustaining, it can continue being a creator of employment. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, let us look at amendments that are sustaining our farmers. But amendments that are getting money away from our farmers then are not very good. I know of an industry that was doing very well, sugarcane industry. It collapsed at one point simply because the farmers were not getting direct benefits. Some farmers decided not to continue with the industry. Excuse me. So we need to ensure that we are helping farmers and encouraging them to continue with this industry of growing coffee. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Senators, there being no any other interest, I put the question, which is that pursuant to Standing Order 159, the amendment of National Assembly to the Coffee Bill, Senate Bill number 22 of 2020, be now considered. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of contrary opinion say nay? Nay. The nays have it. Honorable Senators, I want to defer order number 9 to 33. Next order.
Order number 34, motion, adoption of the report of the Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the Controller of Budget COB Regulations 2021.
The Chairperson, Sessional Committee on Delegated Registration.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the Control of Budget Regulations 2021 were published by the Control of Budget on the 3rd of December 2021 pursuant to Section 25 of the Control of Budget Act.
You need to move.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move that the Senate adopts the report of the Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the Control of Budget COB Regulations 2021, laid on the table of the Senate on the Tuesday, 10th of May, 2022, and pursuant to Section 18 of the Statutory Instrument Act 2013, annuls the Control of Budget Regulations 2021. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Control of Budget Regulations 2021 were published by the Control of Budget on 3rd December 2021 and pursuant to Section 25 of the Control of Budget Act. The regulations were tabled before the Senate on 9th of February 2022 and subsequently committed to the Senate Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation for scrutiny pursuant to Section 15(2) of the Statutory Instruments Act 2013. In brief, and without going into the details of the regulations, the main objective of the regulations is to set out procedures for a number of activities in budget implementation, including authorization of withdrawals of the funds and enforcement of budgetary ceilings. For a detailed itemization, the objectives of the regulations are at Regulation 4. Number 2, in terms of content, some of the salient features of the regulations broken down in parts include: A, the procedure for request and approval of funds from the Consolidated Fund, County Revenue Fund, and any other public fund at Part 2. B, factors to consider while monitoring, evaluating, and reporting on budget implementation at Part 3. C, procedure for conducting investigations and the guiding principles for conducting the investigations at Part 4. D, mechanism for dispute resolution and complaint handling at Part 5. And E, miscellaneous matters in relation to access, management of information and records at Part 6. To have a deeper appreciation of the regulations, Chapter 1 of the committee's report gives a detailed breakdown of the content of the regulations wholesomely. The committee, in scrutinizing the regulations and received submissions from various stakeholders, such as the National Treasury, the Central Bank of Kenya, CBK, the County Assemblies Forum, the Council of Governors, COG, the Office of the Auditor General, the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee, IGTRC, the Committee on Revenue Allocation, and the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya, ISPAC. From the engagement with stakeholders, a raft of proposal which, in their view, could have enriched the regulations was submitted. All the submissions made by the stakeholders have been annexed to the committee's report. Honorable Speaker, the committee made the following observations. A, the regulations contain conflicting timelines with the existing statutes. Regulation 22(3) on submission of quarterly reports to the Control of Budget by the 15th day after the end of each quarter contradicts Section 83, subsection 3 and 5 of the Public Finance Management Act 2012, which requires ministries, departments, and agencies, MDAs, to submit to the National Treasury and a copy to the Control of Budget the quarterly report on the 15th day after the end of each quarter. Mr. Speaker, in this particular regulation, the Control of Budget wants the reports to be submitted to it rather than being submitted to the National Treasury in conformity with the PFM Act. And the PFM Act, Mr. Speaker, sir, takes precedence over any other legislation that talks of financial matters. The National Treasury thereafter is requested to submit a consolidated quarterly report to the Parliament and a copy to the Control of Budget by the 45th day after the end of each quarter. The committee noted that while the timelines in the regulations were in tandem with Section 9 of the Control of Budget Act, Section 6 of the Public Finance Public Finance Management Act 2012 states that the PFM Act shall prevail in case of any inconsistent with any other legislation. In a number of matters, including preparation and submission of budget estimates and the time for doing so, raising of revenue and making of expenditures, which are activities in the implementation of the budget. While scrutinizing the statutory instruments, the committee was guided by the considerations set out under Section 13 of the Statutory Instruments Act. In this specific matter, the committee found that the regulations were not in accord with written law, mainly the PFM Act, as anticipated under Section 13A of the Statutory Instruments Act. B, the committee further observed that the penalties contained in the regulations are not sufficient to deter non-compliance. In other words, the regulations were toothless. Regulation 49 gives a blanket penalty by making reference to the Controller of Budget Act. Based on the foregoing, the committee noted with concern that there was no need to have regulations in place without sufficient consequences for non-compliance. C, while the committee appreciates the right of independent office holders to conduct investigations, the committee noted that the investigative powers as contained in Part 4 of the regulations are likely to overlap with the investigating powers of other government agencies, such as the Auditor General, the DCI, and the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Lastly, the committee was of the view that the regulations do not address challenges currently being experienced, such as pending bills. Mr. Speaker, you are aware that the pending bills has been a real problem to all the counties and the national government. And therefore, the failure by the regulations to address this pertinent issue was a flaw on the part of the regulations. Regulation 82C3 and 102A3 provide that an up-to-date schedule on pending bills and payment plan be provided by the national and county governments during a request for approval for withdrawal of development expenditure to enable the Controller of Budget track the payment of pending bills. The committee observed that this was only a tracking mechanism and will not ensure actual settlement of pending bills before incurring new expenditure. Honorable Speaker, it is after thorough scrutiny of this regulation that the Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation recommends that pursuant to Section 15(1) of the Statutory Instruments Act 2013, and that in accordance with Standing Order 2214B of the Senate Standing Orders, the Control of Budget Regulation 2021 be annulled. Mr. Speaker, I take this opportunity to thank your office and to thank the Office of the Clerk, members of the committee, and the Secretariat for the good work that they have continued to do. I call upon Senator Cherargei to second this report. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Samson Cherargei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I want to thank the chairman of the committee, Senator Mohammed Faki, for the good job. I've gone through the reports and they have done a thorough job, Mr. Speaker, sir, and they did engage the stakeholders. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want just to make two comments. One, as I second this report that has been annulled, is on the issue of pending bills, Mr. Speaker, sir. I sit as a member of County Public CPIC, which audit counties and look at audit queries. The biggest challenge, Mr. Speaker, is the pending bills. Most Kenyans, most young people, PWDs, the youth and women who do business with counties, Mr. Speaker, and the county and the national governments have not been paid. I remember the last time we checked, we were being told more than 110 billion was pending bills that were being owed to county governments, Mr. Speaker. I remember there was a bill that was being proposed called Prompt Payment Bill by this House to ensure that Kenyans who give services and goods to any government entity must be paid promptly, Mr. Speaker. So if they did not capture the issue of pending bills, and most county governments have that problem, then there was a problem with these regulations, Mr. Speaker. And the best person to have known this, because they know the consequences of having a pending bill, the COB should have looked at this issue and addressed once and for all, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, the issue of pending bills is an alive matter, and therefore we must ensure we give it the necessary attention it deserves. And many Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, including your friends and people from Laikipia, I have seen Laikipia also has a pending bill, which is very huge, and it will continue to eat into the development budget that we have. So the fact that pending bills was being omitted, it was very unfortunate. Mr. Speaker, sir, the issue of the Public Finance and Management Act, of course, it takes supreme as the Constitution and subsidiary, and then the overlapping of the issue that we have on the EACC, Mr. Speaker, is also very important because, by the way, the controller of budget cannot investigate himself. You cannot be the judge in your own case. You must ensure that. Mr. Speaker, the annulment of these regulations is welcome. Just allow me to make 1 or 2 points so that I can conclude, Mr. Speaker, is on the issue of County Assemblies Forum. I have seen their recommendation, and it is very important. The reason we are annulling this report is that we are not annulling it into a certainty. These are things they can still redraft these regulations, consult the necessary stakeholders, and they can still bring it. The issue of County Assemblies Forum, I have noted, and I think I should make a comment on this, is they were proposing that when they receive what we call autonomous to be able to access their funds. Mr. Speaker, you know, you and me know this politics. When the governors want to control county assemblies, they must control their budget. And now the power of CEC of finance, they can alter even the budget of county assembly. So if county assembly maybe have made a budget on mortgages and car loans, because the governor thinks that the county assembly is going rogue in courts, they can decide, and therefore the proposals that were being made through County Assemblies Forum cannot be wished away, and I hope in the next regulations they must be captured and ensure they go in place, and ensure, Mr. Speaker, that timeline of county assemblies are sending their money through county treasury, they should be a standardized form, and the CC in charge of finance should not have a sweeping authority that should have been there, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on most of the stakeholders that did submit, the Commission on Revenue Allocation, issue of Office of the Auditor General, certified ISPAC, many other organizations, the Cabinet Treasury, these rules will keep improving. And I think in future, Mr. Speaker, these stakeholders must continue to consult us. The fact that this report has been annulled, the regulations has been annulled, has not met the threshold and the standards of legislations that has been provided. But not all is lost. We can still use as a reference in drafting future rules and regulations. You know, I heard, Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, and Senator Ledama is here, that the reason BBI was being thrown out is that they given us a framework on how to amend a constitution in future. When we throw this report or when we annul this report, it also gives opportunity for the COB to take this report of the Senate and redraft the regulations that are supposed to be within the certain framework, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, the annulment was welcome, and I want to thank committee, the membership that ensured that they annul this report. And people should know, Mr. Speaker, that Senate and Parliament is not a conveyor belt of either government or any entities, that they just bring a report, they bring a regulations, and we say hallelujah and just pass. We must use comb and nail and tooth and nail. We will go word by word, we will go full stop by stop and question and give the rationale. I know most of the government officers continue, sometimes they insult the Parliament and say they don't have capacity, but we want to assure them, anything they bring in this house, we must use microscope, because we are the law-making body, and the law that we allow to go to the public must be the law that is crystal clear and assist our people to move forward. And welcome Senator Ledama back. I know he has been busy crisscrossing the country with Azimio campaigns. Mr. Speaker, I second this report. I thank you.
Honorable Senators, I propose the question, which is that the Senate adopts the report of the Sessional Committee on Delegated Registration on its consideration of the Controller of Budgets, Regulation 2021, laid on the table of the Senate on Tuesday, 10th May 2022, and pursuant to Section 18 of the Statutory Instrument Act 2013, annuls the Controller of Budget Regulation 2021. Senator
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the motion today, which is the adoption of the report of the Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the Control of Budget COB Regulation 2021. Mr. Speaker, I've had a chance to listen to my good friend, Senator from Nandi, moving the report, actually seconding the report, and I had a chance to talk to the chairperson of the delegated legislation. And I've also played a key role in the Public Accounts and Investment Committee, where we have a lot of...
What is it, Senator Cherargei?
Point of order, Mr. Speaker, have you noticed, and I wish he would sit down because it's a point of order. I know him. Mr. Speaker, have you noticed Senator Ledama is carrying a rungu on the floor of the House? Is that allowed? And we are worried the way he has been talking of late in the public. He can become ferocious. How does somebody allowed to carry a rungu in chamber, Mr. Speaker? I'm worried. How do you allow a rungu into the floor of the House? You know, we know Ledama can get on fire and decide to even jump to you, Mr. Speaker, with a rungu. Is it allowed on the floor of the House to walk around with rungu? I know it's okay in Maasai meetings, but not in the Parliament of Kenya.
Senator Olekina, it is okay to have the African regalia, but I would encourage you when you are speaking. It is in order from where I come from, because in Laikipia, we have all, may I say Maasais, because that's our tradition, and you can only speak if you have this regalia. You must be having that fimbo.
Thank you very much for supporting this, and I think this will go in the Hansard, in the record of the history of Parliament, that the Speaker allowed the full traditional regalia, and thank you that I, as a Senator of Narok, have had an opportunity to be able to defend the culture. Mr. Speaker, I want to assure the good Senator from Nandi that a rungu is a sign of leadership. It is not a weapon. And this is something that allows me and also gives me more courage when I'm speaking about issues that we are deliberating in this Parliament. Mr. Speaker, the issue at hand today is something that has affected so many Kenyans. A lot of Kenyans have paid a price. A lot of Kenyans have actually committed suicide because county governments, even the national government, has not paid them. So, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to an issue of regulations, when you have regulations, they have to go hand in hand with the PFM Act. If these regulations do not go hand in hand with the PFM Act, I completely support the idea of nullifying them. Because, Mr. Speaker, if county governments require to be paid, require to withdraw money from the consolidated fund, they require the approval of the control of budget. They send a list of all the pending bills. Why should they not pay? So, Mr. Speaker, any regulations which are set out there should be made very clear that if the county governments or the national government request for payments of certain products, of certain goods in the development budget, or even any activity that the county government carry out, that if they do not comply with regulations which are set out there, they should be punished. So, Mr. Speaker, we will not have a problem with pending bills. Pending bills have continued creating a lot of problems. And in the first place, Mr. Speaker, when you know very well that first in, first out, there's absolutely no reason as to why we should have pending bills. So, Mr. Speaker, as I support this report from the delegated legislation, I want to continue re-emphasizing on the importance of at least any regulations that are passed in this House to be able to comply with the rule of law. Because there's absolutely no reason as to why we should spend most of our time drafting legislation and then coming up with regulations which do not go hand in hand. So, Mr. Speaker, I support one of the observations that was made by the delegated legislation, which I'd like to read so that I can summarize, is that the regulations contain conflicting timelines with the existing statute, which is the Regulation 22.3 on the submissions of quarterly reports to the Controller of Budget by the 15th day after the end of each quarter, contradicts Section 83.3 and 5 of the Public Finance Management Act 2012, which requires ministries, departments, and agencies like the MDS to submit to the National Treasury and a copy to the Controller of Budget the quarterly report on the 15th day after the end of every quarter. Mr. Speaker, if these things were going hand in hand with the main statute, then we will not have a problem of pending bills. You know, a lot of people, and when we go into the next parliament, I think it would be important for this parliament to go on record as having at least put some sanity in the issue of pending bills. So, Mr. Speaker, I support this, and once again, I thank you for allowing culture to continue prevailing, and I want to call upon all the Maasai people and all the pastoralist community to see where the country is moving. We've had a lot of problems, and the only government which is going to be able to assist us, Mr. Speaker, is a government which will be formed by none other than Raila Amolo Odinga. Because Raila Amolo Odinga will not support any monkey business where county governments are not paying their pending bills, where state departments are not paying their pending bills. We need to learn to live within our means, and when we come up with proper regulations that go hand in hand with the PFM Act, then we'll have a beautiful country. Mr. Speaker, I beg to support.
Thank you. What is it, Senator Cherge?
Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, he has finished. I thought what he was doing, he was talking as if he's in a campaign rally. It is in order to start campaigning for people in the floor of the House, instead of canvassing serious issues. And Mr. Speaker, on the issue of dressing, I'm not yet satisfied, because when you look at the Speaker's rules and regulation, I would request for your ruling on this matter. What is it? Because where I come from, we carry, no, I'm not offended, I just need a Speaker's ruling, because it will inform Mr. Speaker. You know, if we don't take care, I will also come with walking stick. Other people can come like Sultan, Senator Faki might come attached with the Sultan, the one that looks like a knife here. So I'm requesting, Mr. Speaker, a ruling on when you are wearing a traditional regalia like Senator Ledama or Lekina. When you walk into the, like with Bakora or a Rungu, or even a knife, because in where he comes from, people are allowed to carry knives to their functions. Even like Kipia, you have said, there is majority of Maasais. So, Mr. Speaker, I would request that there should be a ruling from your House so that we know what we can wear and what we can bring to the floor of the House. I thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Cherargei. I have looked in detail at Speaker's rules, and I have just seen that I have just, because I had ruled, but I want to change my ruling. The weapon, the fimbo, is not allowed in the chamber. But for today, it was allowed because he entered. But Sergeant at Arms, it should not be allowed. Unless you're not going to canvass on that matter. Okay, what's it, Senator Stewart Masayo?
Bwana Spika, katika mwacha asili ni mtumwa. Na hii baadhi ya sisi sote kama Afrika tuko na asili zetu tofauti tofauti. Mtu kama mimi ukiniambia niwache pombe ya mnazi itakuwa si sawa. Bwana Spika, Masai, japokuwa mimi si Masai, lakini naishi na Masai kila siku hapa nikiingia. Na nikitoka, tukienda nje, tukifanya chote, ndugu yangu, rafiki yangu, nishaenda mpaka kule alizaliwa, kile kijiji alizaliwa, na pale alitoka, familia yake yote naijua. Katika mienendo na asili za Wamasai, fimbo ni mojawapo ya nguo zao wanazovaa. Huwezi kuwa Mmasai ukawa mikono yako iko mitupu kama mimi hivi. Kwa hiyo uamuzi uliopeanwa ya kwamba pengine itakuwa ni chombo hatari, hakuna. Kwanza Wamasai si rahisi sana kuwa na hasira za kuanza vita, labda amechokozwa ama amefanywa kitendo cha uhasama, ndio anaweza kuchukua hatua kama hiyo. Bwana Spika, naona kwamba tukifanya uamuzi wa kwamba leo tuseme ya kwamba mojawapo ya katika nguzo za Kimasai ni kwamba awe na fimbo yake mwenyewe ya kama kitu chake cha kuvaa, alafu tukitumie kwa kusema kwamba hakiruhusiwi ndani ya bunge la Senate, nafikiria itakuwa ni makosa, ambapo hapo awali Spika mwenzako alitoa uamuzi huo, akasema ya kwamba mmoja katika zile nguo wanazoweza kuvaa Wamasai na taratibu zao na hisia zao, fimbo ya mkononi ni mojawapo ya mavazi ya Kimasai. Asante Bwana Spika.
Senator Olekina. Mr. Speaker, let me just reiterate on the importance of your earlier ruling. Mr. Speaker, you come from a county which is cosmopolitan but was originally a Maasai-owned county. And there's a difference between a weapon and a leadership tool, Mr. Speaker. For many years in this country, the former president, or the second president of this country, President Daniel Arap Moi, had a rungu with him all through. There's no single day that the president ever took that rungu and hit somebody with it. There's also a difference between a weapon and a rungu. Mr. Speaker, this rungu cannot be held by anybody else. This is something which is blessed by the elders, handed it over to me for leadership. My own family, my own children, my own wife, and even my own friends cannot hold this rungu. You know, this is one that no one can even stand and talk. And to be honest, Mr. Speaker, when I stand here without my leadership tool, I feel like I'm naked. When I'm talking, I get a little bit confused, but the moment I'm holding the leadership tool, I can be able to converse on the issues, such as the issues that we were discussing before, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I am not challenging your subsequent ruling, but I'm just requesting you to go back and really analyze and look at the wording, try to demystify the meaning of the content which are written in the Speaker's ruling, because this is part of us. And just to add on one other thing, and I'd like to request my dear colleague, who I respect a lot, the good senator from Nandi, Senator Cheralgei, that Waswahili, and allow Mr. Speaker for me to use this word, and I'll translate it. Waswahili husema, mwacha mila ni mtumwa. You see, you cannot forget where you come from. As we walk today, Mr. Speaker, we must continue walking as if we have one foot in the modern culture and another foot in the traditional culture. That is the only reason why we can be able to survive in this country. This country, we are colonized, but the moment you now tell me to come here and you challenge the culture, it's as if you're telling me that you do not respect my own culture. You know, we have been terrorized, stigmatized for so many years, Mr. Speaker. And now when we have an opportunity to be able to demonstrate that we too exist in this country, we're being challenged by our colleagues. This Senate is a house of reason. This Senate is a house of union, where we all come together so that we can support our cultures. So, Mr. Speaker, I would like to request you, and also request my dear friend, Senator from Nandi, to allow culture. Please, my brother, walk with one foot in the modern culture and one foot in the traditional culture. That is the only way that we can be able to have everybody in this country respecting. If foreigners are respecting us, if I can be able to walk into Capitol Hill with this rungu, why can I not get into the Senate with it? And I've not done anything to anybody. So, Mr. Speaker, even the good senator saying that I can be violent, you show me one day, and I've traversed this whole country of Kenya. Show me one single day that I've used this rungu to be able to hit anybody apart from just emphasizing. Mr. Speaker, to be honest with you, next time you'll say, come here with black shoes, with laces and socks. Then what will I look like? A zombie walking? You know, I just respect my culture. I come here and articulate on issues that affect our people. Our people, their bills have not been paid by our county governments. You know, and our people are not equal. Mr. Speaker, I want to request my dear brother, Senator Cherargei, to go back and read the proverbs of his own people. Yes. We have 5 fingers and they're not equal. In this country, we're not equal. We come here, we talk about the issue of the equalization fund. Why was it? We talk about the session paper number, was it number 5? Because we want to see how we can all be equal. So let's respect culture. And if there's a problem with the way those speakers' rulings are written, Mr. Speaker advises on how we can rewrite them to incorporate what we have now so that tomorrow our good friends, Senator Cherargei, will accept. And I'll be very happy to see him dressed traditionally. What are you suit unavaa kila siku? Dress traditionally, be happy with your culture. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Cherargei, then I make a ruling.
I think personally, as a leader in this republic, I respect all cultures, regardless from where they are, and there is beauty in diversity. So Senator Ladama to lead the Republic of Kenya saying, I'm against the Maasai culture, I'm not. In fact, most of the names that we have in county of Nandi originally are from Maasai. And you know, Mr. Speaker, Senator Ladama should not mislead the nation. We have not prevented him wearing or coming with Maasai shuka and Maasai regalia. What I was worried, Mr. Speaker, is the standing order, number 109. And I have read Speaker's ruling that talks that no senator shall bring a firearm or any offensive weapon. So we must, no, let me request, I'm requesting for a ruling for the Speaker. Can you hold your peace? You are even misleading yourself because you are being reactive, which might give my assertion that you are violent. Mr. Speaker, or any offensive weapon, that is what we need to interpret, Mr. Speaker, that says, no senator shall bring a firearm or any offensive weapon. We know a rungu. I mean, personally, I know rungu and bakora, Mr. Speaker, in our culture, are signs of authority. But sometimes it can be used as a weapon. So, Mr. Speaker, I need the interpretation of any offensive weapon into the chamber or the venue of a committee sitting. And any such, Mr. Speaker, with the sergeant at arms. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, to allow the movement of the House, we need your ruling. Because the only that can be allowed to the chamber, Mr. Speaker, are PWDs like our Senator Gertrude Musruve that uses crutches. Mr. Speaker, and even sometimes, even people, when I was using a grudge one, when I sit, the sergeant at arms would take, because those are things that can be done. So, Mr. Speaker, Senator Ledama should not reduce the Senate of the Republic of Kenya to a village baraza. The village barazas, Mr. Speaker, is when you can go with those weapons, with those authority things, Mr. Speaker. And I have tremendous respect with Senator Ledama, Mr. Speaker. Senator Ledama has stayed in the United States of America. He knows that in every society, there must be order. And the rules of regulation that guides this House, Mr. Speaker, and I need the ruling on the issue of Ledama bringing the rungu into the floor of the House, on as to why he has decided to bring it, Mr. Speaker. And in fact, I want to request Senator Stewart Manzayo to keep a social distance, because the way Senator Ledama is flanking that rungu, it might even, that distance is too small, Mr. So, Mr. Speaker, as a standing order number 109, and that is why even, Mr. Speaker, when you look at to extrapolate, Senator standing 110 talks about senators' backs. It is the other day, Mr. Speaker, and it's misleading the country. It is the other day under this standing order that women legislators were being allowed to come with their handbags to the floor of the House, Mr. Speaker. It used not to happen, and Senator Stewart Matsai can be a witness. It was allowed the other day if women handbags, which forms part of the dressing of women, were just allowed the other day, and they must be frisked by Sergeant at Arms at the entry of the Senate, Mr. Speaker, then Senator Ledama is going rogue. He must be tamed and follow rules and regulations of the House, Mr. Speaker.
The last one. Okay.
Mr. Speaker, I think we need to respect each one's culture. I have a lot of respect, tremendous respect for the Nandi people. I love the Nandi people. But what the good senator from Nandi is demonstrating is completely hatred towards my culture. Mr. Speaker, we can talk about rules. And I rose here on the standing order, and let me just, sorry. And if we have to go by the rules, these rules, so-called rules that are drafted, advised by our colonial masters who brought us this parliament, because the good senator is talking about me turning this Senate into a baraza. Then, if we are going to stick by the rules, Mr. Speaker, I rise under standing order number 36, which says, quorum during the proceeding of the Senate. If at any time after the chair is taken, or when the Senate is in committee, a senator objects that there is not a quorum present, the Speaker or the chairperson shall count the senators present in the Senate or the committee as the case may be. So, Mr. Speaker, I rise on that statement, on that standing order number 36, because this is a matter that, Mr. Speaker, you should rule when this House is full, so that we can be able to deliberate on it, because it has serious repercussions on the history of this nation. So, Mr. Speaker, I rise on standing order number 36 on quorum for us to be able to know whether we have quorum to continue the business in this House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Olekina. I have already ruled on the issue of the Fimbo, and I said it's not supposed to be allowed in the House. And now we can confirm the quorum as Senator. The bell for to confirm quorum. We have four senators here, and we have 9 senators online. So 5 senators online. So we can ring the quorum bell for 3 minutes. Okay, add 2 more minutes to make it 5 minutes. Honorable Senators, I have confirmed both physical and online. We don't have quorum. Therefore, the Senate is stand adjourned until Thursday, 19th May 2022 at 2:30 p.m.